everybody. My name is Matt Birtwhistle. I'm the head of the manufacturing vertical within HSO UK. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Bill Burke, who is the CEO of Merit Solutions. But Bill, let me hand over to yourself. You can introduce yourself a little bit more and give a bit of background as to what Merit is about.
Sure, Matt. Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to join you today for this discussion. I'm the CEO and founder of Merit Solutions. We're a focused strategy company that builds SaaS software for biopharma and medical device manufacturers and operational companies that are using the Microsoft Business Systems platform. So that's Dynamics 365 cloud, as well as the technologies that come with that cloud platform, Power BI, and the AI capabilities that we'll talk a little bit about today as well. So, and we have a significant partnership with HSO to work together and provide our solutions to biopharma and medical device companies. Thank you.
That's great. No, thanks, Bill. I mean, this is an area that we've been focusing on for quite a number of years, and we've had success with the Microsoft platform selling into pharma industries. But obviously, it's a regulated environment, and there are things that make the pharma business quite unique and quite rigorous. So, I mean, you've been in this place for many years. I know we've had quite a few chats. But what's been the experiences and key challenges that you've seen pharmaceutical companies having to struggle with over the past few years?
Yeah, it's an exciting time, particularly for folks like us that are coming and helping with these digitally enabling tools, because our customers are, what we're seeing is a compression of timelines. And a hypothesis is that it was driven out of the experience we had in the pandemic when we saw Pfizer and BioNTech and Moderna have to move at this incredible speed to serve patients in this emergency way. And we've all sort of learned about how they did that in terms of sort of eliminating gaps in time and compressing workloads to be able to move faster. But underlying all of that is this ability to operate in a digital manner versus a paper and manner, because the ability to capture information once and then use it everywhere that you need to make these decisions and move quickly operationally, it becomes paramount. But also we have this challenge in our industry, which is we have to do that while maintaining regulatory compliance, maintaining validated systems. Moving into these cloud platforms, and in our case, we're talking about the Microsoft, Azure Business Platform, also gives us these capabilities that in the past we would have to think about extra projects and spend and integrating. But now we get into that platform and we can immediately leverage these new technologies that are coming online, like AI, right? Like we have seen what Microsoft did with OpenAI, and they're infusing that and embedding that into the back end of everything. And so this business platform now gives us not just data that's entered, sort of captured and leveraged real time, but also now these new tools that we can start to apply towards operational processes and gain insights and make decisions faster. But we have to do all of that while maintaining compliance. Maintaining compliance in a cloud environment is much different than maintaining compliance when I have my own computers and I have my own IT staff, and we'll talk about customization. Now it's different. But I was able to control that. Now I'm relying on the vendor to control that. It's a better place to be. It's a better path, but it's different. We'll talk a little bit more about that.
Cool, sure. I mean, there's obviously within the Microsoft ecosystem, it's fast moving. They're bringing lots of new functionality, lots of new features. A lot of it not necessarily in the business applications themselves, but surrounding technologies. If we were just to bring it back to the I guess the practicalities of a business looking to run a business system like D365, what have you seen that's worked particularly well for your customers? It's kind of like saying, okay, well, I'm going on a journey, but I've got to start somewhere, and I need to get something that's going to work and deliver value pretty quickly. What's been your experiences around that?
Yeah, it's a great question, because in the old days, you sort of had what we call, 12 months in a mushroom cloud at the end of a project, right? And now what we're trying to do is help customers move into the workloads, identify the prioritized workloads, the work to get done, and how to digitally enable that work, and move into that in a more iterative manner. We HSO and Merit sort of think about that as like agile, maybe Edgefall, right? You have to do some design and upfront and so forth around those clumps of processes that you're going to enable. But we want to get those in and moving and delivering value, and then be able to sort of prioritize the next ones and the next ones. And in that manner, we're able to serve the business faster. We're able to essentially get into that platform that we talked about, start using things like dashboards to give people access to data or trending data, or using their mobile device to get alerts, to do things. All these capabilities start to move us into that place of highly efficient, highly productive, ease of existing within those processes for our people. Our people are the most talented, in my opinion, heuristic, great minds in the world, doing things to solve patient problems, and giving them these environments that they're already familiar with. They already know how to use Microsoft Excel and Word, and so they get into this software we have, and it's the ease of use, the comfort of it, not afraid, and that is also this big factor, right? In the old days, you gave them this sort of big thing that had a different user interface and security layers and all this stuff, and it drive me crazy. So now so part of it is helping the company move with a more iterative approach to getting pieces of things digital, moving them to the cloud, establishing that regulatory and digital regulatory framework with that cloud environment, which takes some steps. We'll talk about that a little bit, hopefully. But then getting that going, and then getting people happy with their work, because they can do it with this familiar software. And that's been a big driver. And that's one reason, of course, that the biopharma companies, med companies go and choose Microsoft as a platform. Because, on the one hand, it has all these built-in capabilities, like things we can turn on. But on the other hand, I'm able to get my people moving faster on it, and that's a really big thing these days. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you just described there, because obviously moving from the old days of, as you said before, the on-premise systems and kind of separate interfaces that people have to get familiar with. And you're absolutely right. What Microsoft is committed to is just having a simple, enjoyable user experience. But what are some of the challenges or some of the resistance that you've found in people wanting, or maybe thinking that maybe going to the cloud isn't for them?
Yeah, well, there's a pretty big amount of trepidation around moving to a cloud environment, and it's rightly so, because our regulatory agencies, right, our MHRA, FDA, and EMA, they're catching up. By the way, I think they've caught up pretty well, but they're living from their perspective, they're living in a risk-based, you're accountable world where you're enabling these workloads now that can cause harm to patients, and so you're sitting under some predicate rules. The FDA's version is 21 CFR Part 820, which is called Quality System. Part 21 is your data integrity and data controls, preventative controls, making sure that you're operating in a way that is not going to harm patients digitally. And so that causes concern when you go to a cloud environment, because now in the old days, we could sort of lock that thing in for 3 years, get a system validated, prove it out, lock that thing in for maybe 3 years, maybe 4, before the software vendor forced us to go to a whole new version and we would revalidate, right? Now, the software vendor, in the case of Microsoft, it's I think the best position is that they're saying you have to take our cloud pushes twice per year. My understanding is SAP is going to say 4 times per year, and I don't know about some of the others. But each time you take these cloud pushes, you have to incrementally revalidate the software according to your setup. And if you have a system that is commercial off the shelf, you're considered GAMP Category 4 status, meaning I'm relying on the software vendor to do compatibility testing. I'm relying on their functionality and workloads. It's considered low risk from a GAMP perspective. And that means that I can incrementally revalidate just what changed, and I can use the papers from my vendor. And when I get audited by the MHRA, I point to those COTS, commercial software vendors, and I say, hey, I'm relying on their quality program. I'm using their functionality. I've audited them. They have, the data center audits. They have their quality system. They're Part 820 compliant. So I'm pointing to them. Whereas if I customize that software, I've put myself into something called, GAMP is the V model for risk control. I put myself in category, it's category 5, which is considered high risk. So now I have to instead of incremental revalidation. By the way, we're doing this revalidation using testing harnesses. So we're applying a library of those tests against it. If I'm category 5, I have to revalidate the entire system, and the MHRA points to me and says, no, you can't point to, in our case, Microsoft and Merit, and say you're counting on them and their quality system. Now we're looking at you to revalidate the whole system, because typically like 1/3 of the things of customizations are going to cause a software to break. So if you've done like 60 customizations, you are not category 4, you're category 5. You also pull your software development lifecycle into the Part 820 quality system. You also pull in code review. So there's trepidation around that. It's rightly so if you're kind of trying to operate the way you might have 10 years ago, taking a business system and customizing it. If you get to a place where you have very little customization, you're leveraging these new cloud tools, which is a wonderful place to be anyway, and you stay GAMP 5 category 4, now you're in a very workable, very managed, very cost managed place where you can revalidate incrementally, you can count on that, and you can get it done. These software vendors also only give you a certain window with the required cloud pushes. It's typically 30 days and then 30 days. So it's like 60 days. So that's become this, in terms of what we're doing for our customers, HSO and Merit, that's come to the top as far as the value we're providing. Yes, we have over 400 workloads automated with the Merit software that are specific to biopharma and med device. But the value of that is translating into, okay, I can take a chunk of those. Maybe I only need 100 of those 400, but I can apply those along as COTS software along with a Microsoft D365 Cloud COTS software. And then I can stay GAMP 5 category 4. I can use those test revalidation testing tools. I can incrementally revalidate. I can operate this way. And now I have all these capabilities that came with that platform. My dashboards I'm putting out, my mobile extension, my controls. And the other aspect of that is, and this is a Microsoft advantage, I have all Microsoft stack other than Merit, which sits inside D365. So that everything I do happens together. It's one revalidation. I have the data center, I have the database, I have security layers the same. When I do that incremental validation, I don't have to go out and do the Amazon data center, et cetera. So that's become this pretty big thing. The trepidation is fair and grounded, but I think just helping customers see the successful path to that is a big thing, and HSO and Merit are having success with operating that way. So, and it's exciting because then these companies can move across and then they can gain all these capabilities we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real interesting position for organizations that, as you say, are used to operating in that traditional manner. And it has been difficult, I think, to get the full visibility of what's involved, what are the risks. You can't just say, okay, well, we'll make some customizations of the standard set, and you'll be fine, Mr. Customer. That's not how it's going to work. So I think what you've highlighted there, again, it comes back to that thinking of, if we're going to be helping businesses, take advantage of what the cloud has to offer, it's got to be done in a way that is lowest risk to them.
Yes,
Absolutely. Otherwise, they aren't going to make that move.
that's
Okay.
exactly right.
Just moving on a little bit. I mean, we touched quite a bit there in terms of the validation processes and obviously compliance. But what's your thoughts in terms of how companies will go about ensuring that they are going to maintain that longer term viability as an organization? We're thinking that if they're going to invest in a cloud platform, it's not something that they're going to throw away in 3 years' time or even 5 years' time. You're typically looking at a 10-year life cycle at the very minimum. But what's your thoughts around the whole sort of quality process and longer term viability?
Yeah, it's my thoughts are that it's just changing so much right now, so fast, and because of the capabilities, these digitally enabled capabilities, then how does a company compete now? We started by talking about the time compression, and everyone can sort of get their head around that. But what does that translate into if I'm a CDMO and I'm doing work for large biopharma or and those are my customers, and they're expecting me now to move at a much faster pace. So how do I take these tools and now have a competitive advantage versus where else they might go? Because I have collaboration. A lot of times now collaboration that is, it's a security risk, by the way. But if I'm CMO, I'm pushing data back and forth by email or even in SharePoint, which is not a controlled environment. It doesn't give me everything I need in terms of electronic signatures and audit and so forth for Part 11. I'm operating here, but if I can move to a controlled collaboration where I'm able to use Teams and pull up the spreadsheet of the data related to this batch and allow the customer to make a change, but track that audited and be able to represent to the MHRA exactly what happened in an audit, then I'm moving to digital, even not just within my operational capability, I'm moving to digital in the way I'm collaborating with my customer. And what we're seeing is that speed expectations coming from those customers to those CDMOs. And so how do you start taking out gaps of time, sort of wait time, start using these digital tools in that more connecting way, more we're working together, but unlike other industries, we have to do that in this digitally controlled environment and according to a compliance strategy, risk processes identified. And so to me, I think longer term, that's where it goes, is the companies that get into these cloud platforms, they start to use these tools that are inherent in the platform, like in Microsoft, and that like HSO and Merit are bringing that are very specific to like the example I just gave that allow customers to do this with their customers, then they gain success. They start to gain market share. They gain a differentiating advantage. On the other side, on the operational side, it's also true. So, for example, we have a customer. They're a large. You would know them by name. They're a large DNA plasmid manufacturer. One of I think the largest in North America, and they have now over 15,000 batches that they've run for their customers based on starter material that they're cell banking and growing, and then they're lysis buffering and purifying. But one of their big challenges in delivery time is trying to predict variability in those batches. And so now we can take the AI that's just built into the Microsoft platform and just start training it against that data. All of those 15,000 batches that are out there is an example that they're looking at to say, wow, if we can let the AI just go learn and train on this data, it can come back and start giving us insights on the front end that will allow us to compress our customer lead times, because we'll say, we'll get this starter material, we're going to grow this GMP DNA plasmid, and what is it most like? Right now we're kind of guessing, right? Okay, well, but the AI is telling us this, and the AI is giving us recommendations on what process development models to use to start to scale that in and grow it. So that's one example on the operational side where, but for getting to that cloud platform, they would not have access to these tools. It just wouldn't be economical. It'd be like taking third-party stuff in the old way where sort of integrate it. But they're having that now. They did not envision that when they went into the cloud platform, but they're getting it. So I think, longer term, 5-10 years, it's about getting into one of these platforms that is going to continue to bring that new technology into it, staying in a COT software place so I can keep operating there, don't customize off the rails, and then allow my business users to start competing in these different and new ways, many of which I think haven't been thought of, conceived yet, but they will as these technology tools start to become usable, right? It's not like, the old, in the traditional way, this IT group, oh, I need to ask them and they won't tell. No, these business users can get in and start using things. So I think, all up, it's a really exciting time. There's a tremendous amount of change. Change is good or bad, depending on which side you land on it. But it's positive change because these digital tools cloud platforms are finally to a place where our industry sort of had to wait for all these reasons of compliance and control. And now we can get in there and start operating differently and competing. And it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, and as I say, we're seeing that the pace of change within the industry, and as I said before, it's also reflected in the way that Microsoft are bringing things to the market. ChatGPT with Copilot is just something that springs to mind that they announced a week or so ago. But I guess just as we sort of wrap things up, what I'm hearing is there's a message there that says to people who are interested in moving to the cloud that whilst it's daunting and there are things that need to be considered, the risks of not moving to the cloud probably outweigh more the risks of moving to the cloud. Would that be a fair summation?
It would, because the companies that are doing it now, there is a smart path there. It's proof on how to do it. The companies that are doing that now are going to compete in different ways. And also, I talked about it earlier, maintain people in different ways. That's one of our biggest levers in our biopharma businesses is how do I get people to really be in a culture, be in an environment that they feel valued. So I think it's getting that place now where moving into the cloud, getting into the right modern business cloud-based platform, doing it with controls and being able to maintain validation, doing it with off-the-shelf software versus customizing, more traditional, then giving the business users capabilities is where to go. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Bill, it's been great chatting to you. I think that's a great place for us to stop. For all of our viewers, there's a lot of detail in what we're talking about, and we're planning on running a few webinars in the future to explore some of these topics in a bit more detail, and we'd love to have you participate in those. So watch out for those in the very near future, and thank you everybody for your time, and thanks to you, Bill.
Oh, great to be here. Thank you, Matt.